Ashes of Earth. The wind carried ash like falling snow. Ari Quinn pulled his scarf higher over his face as he crossed the dead riverbed, the cracked mud crunching beneath his boots. The air tasted like iron and dust. Sunlight filtered dimly through the toxic haze, casting the world in a dull amber wash. This used to be Colorado, once green and loud with life. Now it was just bones and rust. He carried a canvas sack on his back, weighed down with parts, scavenged wiring, a few old solar panels, and a half-burnt paperback novel. He hadn't seen another human in 3 months. Maybe longer. Sometimes he counted the days, sometimes he didn't bother. His bunker lay hidden beneath the ruins of an old train station. It had been his father's, and before that, a resistance safe house. He keyed in the manual code at the hatch, and the steel door hissed open. The lights flickered on as he entered, powered by what was left of his patchwork solar grid. Rows of shelves lined the walls, books, tools, preserved food. It smelled like dust and metal. Home. He didn't hear the alarm until it was almost too late. A shrill beeping echoed from the old scanner in the corner, one of the few working pieces of pre-fall tech. Something had entered Earth's atmosphere. Something alive. Ari's heart kicked into gear. No one came to Earth anymore. Not unless they were scavengers or coral. And coral didn't scavenge. They eradicated. He grabbed his rifle hand-built, held together with glue and fury, and climbed the metal stairs back to the surface. The beacon pointed southwest, half a mile out. He found the wreckage in a crater near what used to be a shopping mall. The ship was small, no larger than a car, sleek and silver, with sharp alien geometry. A Coral Scout vessel. He knew the shape from his father's old resistance files. One of them survived the crash. She lay half-buried in rubble, slim, silver-skinned, breathing shallowly. Coral. Female. Her eyes fluttered open, pale lavender. Her hair shimmered like white silk, tangled with ash and blood. She wore a skin-tight exosuit, cracked at the ribs. She looked young. Scared. In pain. Ari raised his rifle. Her gaze snapped to him, and she flinched not out of fear, but confusion. She didn't try to speak. Just stared at him, her chest rising and falling fast. He stood there for a long moment. This was the enemy. Her people had burned cities, poisoned oceans, and dropped plasma bombs on hospitals. They'd called humanity a containment risk. A threat to galactic order. Ari had been 6 when the skies turned red. He remembered fire. He remembered screaming. And yet, she was just lying there. Broken. Bleeding. Her hands trembled as she reached for her helmet, like she couldn't breathe. Ari exhaled through his teeth and lowered the rifle. "Shit," he muttered, walking toward her. He didn't know why he carried her back. Maybe it was the way her fingers had curled into the dirt, like she didn't want to die. Maybe it was the way her eyes had searched his, silently pleading. Or maybe it was just the quiet, nagging part of him that refused to become the monster they said humans were. Back at the bunker, he patched her up with what he had, basic med gel, a cracked oxygen filter, stitched her side with shaking fingers. She didn't speak, not yet. Just watched him, confused and cautious. By nightfall, she was sleeping on a cot near the engine room, wrapped in an old wool blanket. Her breaths were shallow but steady. Ari sat by the wall, cleaning his rifle in silence. He could feel the weight of her presence like a storm on the horizon. He should have let her die. But he didn't. And somehow, that terrified him more than anything else. The enemy I breathe with. The alien stirred before dawn. Ari had been awake for hours, seated against the far wall with his rifle across his lap. The bunker was quiet, except for the soft hum of solar power trickling through the systems and the distant groan of the wind against the earth above. He watched her blink awake slowly. Her eyes, pale as mist, scanned the room with cautious movements. When they landed on him, she flinched, shrinking back on the cot. Her ribs must have hurt like hell, but she didn't make a sound. Ari didn't speak right away. He stood, set the rifle aside, and walked to the workbench. He poured 2 tin cups of water and placed one near her. "Drink. You'll need it," he said gruffly. She hesitated, then reached for it with trembling hands. She sipped, then coughed. Her throat was dry, her body still recovering. "I don't understand," she said, her voice ragged, but clear, filtered through a faint translator hum. "You should have left me." "I should have," Ari replied, sitting back down. She looked at him strangely. "You're human. No hiding that down here. I thought there weren't any left." Ari didn't respond. By midday, she was sitting upright. He hadn't offered his name. Neither had she. But silence hung heavy between them, laced with unspoken questions. She kept staring at the walls, the books, the old maps, the photographs taped to the shelves, his mother holding him as a child, his father in a resistance uniform. "This place," she said softly, "feels like it's still alive." Ari smirked faintly. "It's not. It's just stubborn." That made her blink. "Like you." He ignored that and handed her a small bowl of canned stew. She sniffed it, curious. "Is it poisoned?" she asked dryly. "Only a little," he deadpanned. She took a slow bite. Chewed. Swallowed. "It's warm," she said, as if surprised by the concept. "You crash-landed on a dead world," Ari said. "You're lucky I found you." Her eyes met his. "Am I?" Later, while she rested, Ari sifted through the wreckage of her escape pod. He salvaged a power cell and a coral data spike. Most of it was fried, impact damage. But one sliver of her tech pulsed faintly with energy. He plugged it into the old terminal. Encrypted galactic code scrolled across the screen. Ari frowned. Some of the phrases were translated automatically through the coral language pack his father had stolen years ago. Scout Mission 017-B. Verify planetary status. Sol 3, Earth. Post-purification survey. Expected presence. 0 sapiens. Ari stared at that line. 0 sapiens. Expected. So they thought they'd finished the job. He turned away from the screen and looked at her, still sleeping, her white hair draped over her shoulder, hands clutching the edge of the blanket like a child. Ari's stomach twisted. That night, she woke to find him sitting nearby, staring into the dim orange glow of a dying power lamp. "I want the truth," she said, voice low. He didn't look at her. "You sure?" She nodded once. He told her everything. Not the version her empire taught, the clinical report of a species purged for instability. He told her what it really looked like. The children buried in backyard gardens. The cities that vanished under orbital fire. The skies filled with ships while governments begged for mercy. The silence that followed. "My mother," he said, "died holding a piece of broken glass like it was a weapon. My dad watched his entire unit get turned to vapor. I grew up underground, breathing mold and radiation because your kind decided we were too much trouble to let live." Silence fell again, deeper this time. Her face had gone pale. Eyes wide. No argument. No denial. "I didn't know," she whispered. "They told us you were relocated." Ari barked a bitter laugh. "Yeah. Relocated 6 feet under." She looked down at her hands. "I was just a junior scout. I never even saw Earth. They said it was too dangerous for us." "Not dangerous," Ari said. "Just human." As he stood to leave, she reached out and caught his sleeve. "Why save me, then?" He paused. "I don't know," he said quietly. "Maybe I wanted to remember we're not monsters either." She let go. He walked back to his cot on the far side of the room and laid down, but sleep didn't come for either of them. Above them, Earth turned slowly beneath a burnt sky. 2 enemies breathing the same poisoned air. The last spark. The forest was no longer a forest, just a scattered mess of blackened stumps and ash. Once, Ari's father told him, this had been alive with green and birdsong. Now it whispered only when the wind pushed through dead trunks. Ari led the way, carefully stepping over broken roots and twisted metal. Vela followed close behind, limping slightly but steady. The bruise on her side had turned a deep violet, and she clutched her ribs with every breath. They were looking for an old signal relay tower, a pre-fall structure buried in the hills. If it still had power, even a flicker, it could send a long-distance message across space. Not that either of them knew exactly what they'd say if it worked. "We'll rest soon," Ari said, scanning the treetops. "You're slowing down." "I'm fine," Vela replied through gritted teeth. You're not. You just don't want to admit a human is helping you. She stopped walking. I don't think of you as human, she said. Ari turned. That's so. I think of you as Ari. Her voice was soft. Just Ari. He blinked, unsure what to do with that. They found the tower buried beneath a collapsed communications dome, half-eaten by vines and rust. The satellite dish leaned like a broken spine, but the base was intact. Ari kicked through the rubble, clearing space near a cracked control panel. If the power core's alive, we've got a shot. Vela sat on the edge of a bent support beam, her face pale. And if it's dead? Then we go back, and I teach you how to fish with a coat hanger. That made her laugh. It was short, strained, but real. He crouched over the panel, pulling wires apart, connecting her coral power crystal to the old terminal. A sharp blue spark jumped through the connection. A screen blinked on. He grinned. We've got juice. Vela moved beside him. The interface was half in English, half in old UN code. She helped him decipher the encryption, her hands brushing his now and then as they worked. You're good at this, she murmured. My dad used to call it angry engineering, Ari replied. Fix it before it kills you. They managed to patch together a weak uplink. Vela hesitated before entering a signal command. This will ping my people, she said. They'll come looking. Will they shoot first? I don't know anymore. Before she could hit send, the air around them whined with a high-pitched screech. Ari's head snapped up. Drone. A coral sentry unit, a sleek, black oval with needle-like arms, broke through the trees, scanning. It had followed Vela's emergency transponder. Run! Ari grabbed her arm, pulling her behind the tower. The drone fired. Plasma ripped through metal and scorched the ground. Vela yanked a weapon core from her belt, one of the last things she'd salvaged. She fired it once, direct hit, but it only staggered the drone. Ari scrambled up the relay platform and jumped. He landed hard on the drone's back, plunging a screwdriver into its sensor. It exploded. He hit the ground hard, coughing from the impact, blood in his mouth. Vela ran to him. You idiot! You're welcome, he wheezed. They both collapsed in the dirt, side by side. The smoke cleared slowly. Ari rolled onto his back, staring at the gray sky. You could have left me, he said. So could you. They looked at each other. It wasn't sudden. There was no music or moment of magic. Just eyes meeting, tired and open, and something unspoken falling away. Vela leaned in, slowly, as if unsure. Ari met her halfway. Their kiss was soft, brief, tasting of ash and blood, but it shook something loose inside him. Like a wall he hadn't realized he'd built. When they pulled apart, she touched his face gently. I didn't come here to feel this. I didn't plan to feel anything at all. He rested his forehead against hers, breathing her in, grounding himself in her presence. Night fell around them. They built a fire from broken branches and old wiring. They didn't talk much, just sat in the quiet, side by side. The stars came out through the clouds, one by one. You ever think, Ari said, maybe love is our last rebellion? Vela looked up. Against who? Everyone. She reached for his hand. He let her take it. Underneath a dying sky, on a broken world, two enemies stayed close. Not for survival this time, but for each other. Signal to the stars. The message was sent. The antenna sputtered sparks as the signal pushed into the sky, weak, unstable, but real. Somewhere, if the stars still listened, someone would hear. Vela stood by the broken console, arms folded across her chest. Her wounds had mostly healed, though her limp lingered. Ari watched her from a few paces away, his rifle slung low, his expression unreadable. What did you say? He asked quietly. She didn't turn. I told them I was alive. That Earth wasn't empty. That I found someone. Ari nodded. You didn't say human. I didn't need to. The wind rolled across the empty hills like a whisper of the past. Ash swirled near their boots, stirred by a coming storm. They'll send someone, Vela said. Do you think they'll care? I think, she said, finally turning to face him, that maybe someone up there still has a soul. They returned to the bunker. The world above was no safer than it had been, but it felt different now, like it didn't belong just to ghosts anymore. Inside, Ari lit the old hanging lantern and began sealing the outer hatch. Vela sat beside the map table, fingers brushing the worn edges of photographs and old rebellion notes. She was learning to read Earth's past, one crumbled page at a time. "You could leave," Ari said, not looking at her. "When they come." Vela blinked. "Do you want me to?" "No." He turned around, stepping closer. "But I need you to have the choice." She stood. "You gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it. That choice was yours. And you didn't shoot me when you could have. We keep not killing each other. It's becoming a habit." They smiled, small, fragile things that felt heavy with meaning. That night, a soft alarm buzzed on the scanner. An approaching ship. Ari and Vela stood together in the dark, staring at the blinking signal. It wasn't a coral warship. Too small. No weapons detected. A transport. "It's a reply," Vela whispered. "They answered." She nodded. "Someone did." Ari tightened the strap on his rifle, unsure whether to feel relief or dread. Vela placed a hand over his. "I'll go. Alone. I'll meet them outside the perimeter, make contact. If it's not safe, I'll come back." "No," he said. "We go together." "You sure?" He nodded. "We survive together. Or not at all." They waited on a ridge where the old forest used to begin. The wind was cold. The sky above churned with color as the ship broke through the clouds, sleek, silver, unfamiliar. It didn't bear coral markings. The vessel hovered for a moment, then descended slowly. The hatch opened. 3 figures stepped out, cloaked in neutral gray, no weapons drawn. Not coral. Not human either. Something else. One of them spoke, a soft voice filtered through a translator. "You are Vela of the Coral Scouting class?" Vela stepped forward. "I am. And the human, he's my bond." A pause. "That is unexpected." Vela didn't move. "So was surviving this long." The leader studied them, then nodded once. "We are not here to destroy. We are here to listen." Later, as the sun dipped behind clouds and the ship rested quietly in the clearing, Vela and Ari sat on a boulder, watching the sky. "They're part of the Independent League," she explained. "Neutral observers. They've been monitoring the war. They intercepted the signal by accident." Ari shook his head. "Nothing's ever really an accident, is it?" "They're offering sanctuary," she said. "Off-world. For both of us." He looked down at his hands. "Sanctuary sounds a lot like escape." "It's not." She touched his arm. "It's a beginning." They stood at the edge of the ship's loading bay. "You don't have to decide now," she said gently. "But if you come, we can tell the story. Together. Let them see what we saw." Ari looked out across the wasteland that used to be Earth. "If I leave, this is gone. Forever." "Not gone," she whispered. "But finally at peace." He stepped forward. She took his hand. "I'm scared," he admitted. "I know," she said. They crossed the threshold together. As the ship lifted into the clouds, Earth slowly shrank beneath them, scarred, broken, but not forgotten. And in the silence of space, with the stars finally listening again, a human and a coral sat side by side. Not as enemies, not as survivors, but as proof that even at the end of all things, love remains.